Good evening, everybody. It's Jim Alexander here. I'm the Executive Director and founder of the Industry Pharmacists organization. Just want to, on behalf of our members, welcome everybody to tonight's session. Really excited to be reaching out to so many students, many of you on short notice. I definitely want to recognize the Rhode Island chapter and Kimberly Giddings and her group. It was her idea to see if we couldn't get a webinar going, and it just occurred to me here really in the last 24 hours that we might include as many students around the country as would be interested. And in fact, we've got students from 20 different schools on tonight. So thank you for your time tonight, and look forward to some good dialogue. I won't be able to hear you. It's just easier on a webinar that way, but really encourage you to. I saw some things in the chat already, but you can ask a question actually in the upper left-hand corner. There's a little question mark. That would be the best way if you could. I want to get to as many of those at the end of this as possible. So anytime during the presentation or at the conclusion, just go ahead and submit a question up there. So really what we're going to do tonight, we're going to cover the industry in general, talk about what industry pharmacists do. A number of the questions that came in before the webinar started here were around, well, how do I become an industry pharmacist? What are some of the good pathways? And we'll go into that. And then, of course, I want to describe what we do with IPHO and a lot of the cool benefits and services that we've built out for students like you. We're so excited out of really just over a year. We went from no chapters to 15 student chapters. There's a couple more that are, in the queue, ready to join, and others who have a conversation going locally at their school. So I really think it's amazing. We always knew there'd be student interest, but it's really overwhelmed us, frankly. Myself and Jerry Silverman, Alex Way, who's the student national president, have worked really hard to onboard everybody and try to promote connectivity between all of these student chapters. So it's really, really exciting for us to see the enthusiasm and the growth in those chapters. If you're connecting with us tonight at a school that doesn't have a student chapter, please reach out at support@industrypharmacist.org, and we'll can easily go through the process with you. Myself, just a quick on my bio. I'm like you. When I was your age, I was kind of trying to figure it out, trying to sample as many different areas of industry as possible. And fortunately for me, there was a speaker like me now who came and talked to our class and talked about what pharmacists could do in industry. That really piqued my interest. And a couple of years later, after an internship, I went on to become the second Rutgers Fellow ever. Out of, it's probably close to 1,000 now. I think I have 900 on the slide. I stayed with the host company on my fellowship program afterwards, stayed there for 13 years, and rose to the level of vice president. A lot of people may not recognize that logo, Warner Lambert. Pfizer took us over after we invented Lipitor. So it's great to work at the company that really discovered and marketed the #1 medication of all time. In 2001, I took a step back from industry, just trying to think of what I wanted to do next. I ended up going back to Rutgers, which had been so good to me, helped me get my start in the industry, and asked Dean Calesi and Dr. Barone at that time, hey, what do you have going on around the school here that I can get involved with? And one thing led to another, and 1 week became 10 weeks, and then pretty soon it's 10 years. And I'm so proud to have trained over 400 fellows and 1,000+ students in my classroom. Now, as you know, I'm running IPHO and founded that a couple of years ago. I also have a day job. I run a website called mycme.com, and we provide continuing education to healthcare professionals. A little bit about the industry in general. I know there's a varying level of understanding, I think, among students around the country. Some of you may know more than others. And so this slide I do like to take the time to go through. Because what is industry? Well, it's a lot of different things, really. It can be a small company, a startup like a biotech. It can be a company that's a service industry company like the one I work at every day. I have 35 people who work for me. It can be a medium-sized company that may only be in a few countries with a few products. And then a lot of us recognize the big names like Pfizer, Novartis, and et cetera, who are in multiple countries and in essentially every country in the world. Over 1 million employees globally in the pharmaceutical industry, and please know that for the purposes of this presentation, I'm just using the term pharmaceutical industry and biopharmaceutical industry as interchangeable. Strong presence in the U.S., parts of the Midwest, in the Northeast in the U.S., parts of the Midwest, and the West Coast. One of the interesting things I always point out, because I think students do hear some negative press about pharmaceutical companies, and one of the things I think is at the heart of it is that pharmaceutical companies are in the business of making money. They're mostly almost all of them are for-profit companies. They have stakeholders and shareholders to answer to. They are in the business to make money, but yet it's in healthcare, and so which obviously involves patients, their health, their well-being, their lives. So the notion that a company is doing business in an area that involves patient lives and well-being, you can see how it sets up, the industry for potential criticism in that regard. So if you accept that, you can see why that's there. If you talk to any pharmacists who's working in industry, they love it. So the people who work there kind of don't understand where that comes from, but that's my theory anyway. The companies are innovating. So, who's going to discover new medicines if not pharmaceutical companies? And that's really the way the global market is set up, and companies are really key in the overall healthcare team in providing these products and getting them to patients who need them. And when I say patients, I want to really emphasize that, because you could look at any of the creeds and the mission statements of pharmaceutical companies, and you'll see that the patient is always at the heart of that. And those companies that do well don't forget that and really live by and walk the talk. Like I said before, they're innovating the companies. Their role is to sink a lot of money into research and development to find those new medicines that will increase for the patients, quantity and quality of life. Somebody's got to confirm all the safety and efficacy and the value now of those medications. It used to be enough to just prove the safety and efficacy, and that's enough for FDA. Now the market may not accept a new medicine, even if it's approved by FDA, if it's too high priced or not enough points of difference from the other medicines and the medications that are already in a therapeutic area. Companies promote the optimal use of medications, and that's something that the pharmacist working in a pharmaceutical company can really contribute to. I just call your attention to the graph there. Data from a couple years ago, but that's something that as a pharmacist, I think it's one of the things that connects us with pharmaceutical industry, whether that's our career or not. Both of us are in that business every day, whether we're a healthcare provider or a pharmaceutical company, of providing prescription drugs, which are really such a small part of the overall healthcare dollar. As we all know, as you're studying in school and going on your IPhOs and APPs, you see it all at work, what prescription drugs do for patients in terms of enhancing their quality and quantity of life. So what about industry pharmacists? What does a pharmacist do in industry, and why are they suited to help out a company such as I've described? And we at IPHO really feel, I do admit that we're a little biased, but I can't help but marvel at all the things that pharmacists do at pharmaceutical companies to bring those new medicines to market and make sure that patients can get them, and the right patient, at the right time. So we really view industry pharmacists as indispensable. And, again, tying back to when I was your age, I did an internship, and I couldn't believe that there was this whole parallel universe of job opportunities out there that nobody was telling me about, or my fellow students. Again, I was fortunate enough to be one of the ones who was exposed to it. I think really important in today's market to look at all of the different things you can do. I'm not trying to convert any of you to work for a pharmaceutical company. What I always did for my students at Rutgers, I just want to provide awareness that it's there, and you should poke around. There's a lot of things you can do with your degree, a lot of different things. You'll see the standard ones just going through your curriculum. But if you take a look around, there's a lot of different roles and unique opportunities that pharmacists are fulfilling out there. The pharmacists at every step along the way, they help to develop medicines if they're more in the R&D function, help market them, work in medical organizations within companies, and it's really all for the patient. I'm going to have a slide in a minute that kind of contrasts what pharmacists in industry do versus what pharmacists do in traditional settings. But what's unique, well, not what's common to both, is that everybody's working on the behalf of the patient if you're a pharmacist. So what you gather in this difficult curriculum that you go through will be very valuable to pharmaceutical companies. Yes, we're the medication experts, no doubt about that. But what industry pharmacists do in the pharmaceutical companies is to apply that knowledge of the different products, the different therapeutic areas. Believe it or not, you've got as good of an education about the healthcare system and the way that healthcare professionals interact with one another than anyone. These things are very valuable to pharmaceutical companies, and it's why there's so many job opportunities. Not as many as we'd like. I could see pharmacists having 10 times that many jobs, and that's one of the things that we're going to work on in our advocacy platform through IPhO. But I happen to think that pharmacists can really do anything. They're leading project teams at companies. One of the really cool things, especially if you're an MSL, and many of you probably have heard that term, medical science liaison, you're interacting with key opinion leaders, leading cardiologists, for example, if you're in the cardiovascular area, leading medical oncologists if you're in the oncology area. And not just if you're field-based in a medical science liaison, but also in a lot of the roles that pharmacists fulfill within the company. Again, one of the really cool things, you're working with cutting-edge science. Pharmaceutical companies do have a lot of resources. I highly respect academic researchers and what they do. What I've seen in pharmaceutical companies is because the funding and commitment is there to discover and develop these new medications, there's a huge investment in technology and science, and so you often get to work with really the best tools in the world that are available. The other thing that I'll just go into, again, one of the things that I saw when I was your age and somebody introduced this parallel universe to me, I saw pharmacists working in so many areas, and I knew that if I ever got bored with one, or if I felt there was another challenge in another area, that I could do that I could transfer into different departments and experience professional growth in that way. And so I don't see that in all of pharmacy to the level I'd like to see that, but I definitely see it within industry. There's upward mobility in terms of promotions, and you can have a really rewarding and interesting career path. This is a slide I talked about, so just call your attention to the right side first, and I've just chosen CVS. It could be Walgreens or your local academic medical center for that matter. When you talk about patient care, you all know that either you've been experienced to it or you're about to be through your rotations and internships. As a pharmacist, we're the most accessible healthcare professional out there, and we do have direct impact on patient care individually. In a pharmaceutical company on the left side, you get your satisfaction not from direct patient care, but it's actually the impact overall that you have on a larger number of patients. So I mentioned I worked at a company that discovered Lipitor. Everybody there felt amazing about what they were doing every day, because it might just have been a small part of a big, program, but what you were doing each day was going to impact literally tens of millions of patients around the world every day. So that was a really, really good feeling. It's not for everybody, but for myself and, the 9,000 or so others, that's what you do. You're not seeing patients directly on a daily basis, but you have the satisfaction that what you're doing is going to help them. Clinical knowledge. Hey, I'm paying, either I am or my parents maybe, or through loans, paying for this wonderful education, high price tag. I'm accumulating all this clinical knowledge. What do I do with that? I know what I do in the hospital or the community setting. What about industry? What happens is you are applying your clinical knowledge. It tends to be perhaps a little bit more narrow of focus. If your company markets, cardiovascular medications and no oncology medications, you're not going to be applying oncology-based clinical knowledge on a daily basis. You're just not. You do a deeper dive into those therapeutic areas, and you might learn them. For example, that I gave, cardiovascular, you might learn that better than any other practicing pharmacist out there on a daily basis, because you need to have that deep dive at that point. We're also applying clinical knowledge towards drug development if you're working in R&D and bringing new medications to the market. What's the setting? Well, again, you're pretty familiar in a traditional pharmacist job. In industry, many pharmacists work in a corporate headquarters. Again, depending on the size of the company, that might be small, medium, or large. You might work in the U.S. You might work in a country outside the United States. And then, I've mentioned field-based there. There's still quite a number of pharmacists who work as sales representatives who are field-based. Also, medical science liaisons. There are more than 8,000 or 9,000, industry pharmacist jobs. More than 1,500 of them are field-based medical science liaison positions. I think there might be a misconception out there that industry is sort of an easy, a country club job. It couldn't be further from the truth. That's a myth. You work hard, just like you do in your personal life now. You're never out of touch with your texts and emails and Instagrams and so on. You're really never out of touch if you're working for a company. You might choose to put your phone down or your tablet down for a few hours, but you'll end up checking email and keeping in touch, essentially all the time. And you travel. At your age, you probably think that's terrific. I did too. I did for a long time until I got a family. Then you'll find what kind of balance is right for you. Hey, I may not want to travel on a weekend to Japan or the other coast in the U.S. or whatever to do whatever my business, whatever my job demands. In pharmacy, as we know, that there you do work long hours as well. So it's kind of equivalent. You're not punching a clock. You don't have a set hours, although you have core office hours that you're really expected to keep along with your colleagues. I'll just remind everyone along the way, as questions arise, please go ahead and put them in that Ask a Question button. I'm going to go into some more about the pharmacist role in the industry. I mentioned this already, so I don't think I'll repeat too much of it. Just a couple of new points about why companies and why the pharmaceutical industry needs pharmacists. You have that patient understanding. One of the things that's happened is, 15, 20, 25 years ago, it was, do the studies that are necessary, get something approved, manufacture some pills in a bottle and push it out there. Now there's so many more complex specialty products, and it takes professionals like you to understand the nuances of those. A lot of products, a lot of medications that are approved have trailing obligations attached to them from FDA. Further studies are required. Actual use studies that take place, documentation at the pharmacist level or the clinician level. the products that are being discovered these days are just a lot more complex. As I mentioned before, safety and efficacy is not enough anymore. Pharmacists are perfectly positioned with our background to be able to participate in a field called pharmacoeconomics, where and health economics and outcomes research, where you're studying the value of medicines. Again, if you're to fit, now go back and reference Lipitor. It was the fifth in its class into the market, and it had to be really, really good medication in terms of its efficacy, potency, and safety profiles to displace the entrenched leaders in the market. Today, you might not even make it onto a formulary unless you've got a complex, unless you've had some complex studies completed to show that new medicine is better, for the pocketbook, for the institution or the payer. It may not even get third tier on the formula. Again, pharmacists perfectly positioned to participate in that. And then just generally speaking, again, going back 20 years, it was a lot of business and, not enough science. And that kind of got the industry in trouble. And they'd gotten away from hiring field-based, customer-facing, customer being clinicians and key opinion leaders, gotten away from hiring pharmacists and other scientific or healthcare professionals to interface with those stakeholders and hiring more business-focused people and teaching them enough science to get by. Now the pendulum has swung way back the other way, which comes to you and pharmacists. And you've got the training necessary. So on top of that, you can add some business acumen and some of the interpersonal and communication skills that are necessary to succeed in a corporate environment. Pharmacists, again, are ideally suited to contribute in that way. So what you see here on this slide is the three different colored boxes at the bottom. Those are not sort of traditional pharmaceutical companies. It's colored differently because all the jobs sort of above the line there are common roles that you would see pharmacists occupying in a pharmaceutical company. And the more orange or yellow colored boxes, those are more, those are service industry or the FDA or related companies where pharmacists, have rewarding jobs and careers, but they're not working at a Pfizer per se or a Bristol Myers. Their employer is different. I'm going to go into each of these boxes really a 30-second, 35,000-foot level tour, and, in the interest of time for tonight. I mentioned medical science liaison already. Medical affairs is the department in the company that really looks after all the medical aspects and one of the areas that a pharmacist is most likely to be employed in. A lot of pharmacists make their way into the marketing and sales and market research, so you're making the business decisions about how are we going to promote this product, how are we going to raise awareness, how can we make sure that we communicate with clinicians about the nuances of this drug so that they better understand them. Those kinds of things take place through promotional education as well as non-promotional. Regulatory affairs is a discipline that oversees the interaction with the FDA, the building of a new drug application, a strategy for how we will get a drug approved after it's first discovered. And so the regulatory affairs group is the liaison with the FDA, who's the decision maker. HEOR, managed care, I mentioned that. With most now, the vast majority of care delivered through a managed situation now, managed delivery, meaning it isn't just open market and private pay. Again, there's many jobs in a pharmaceutical company now to help the company interact with those payers, with those pharmacy benefit managers, making sure that they understand everything that the company wants them to understand about the medicines. Medical information of anything on here is probably the most like something that you'll see and experience directly in pharmacy school, even if you never set foot inside of a company, which is, a call center at the hospital, one where the clinicians or patients or whoever might call with a unique question about a drug. If you're working in a hospital setting, at an academic medical center, those questions could run the gamut. It could be about any medicine, about any side effect, any patient response. If you're working at a company, it's a narrow but deeper focus on just the medicines and the therapeutic areas that company is participating in. Clinical research, after something's discovered and before it can be approved by FDA, it literally needs to be studied in tens of thousands of patients. Healthy, normal volunteers to, patients who are afflicted with a particular disease. Designing, managing, implementing, and writing up the clinical studies that are the key studies that support a new drug application. Medical communications or agency, and there was a question before the presentation started about that. That's a company like what I work in today. We work with pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies fund some of the education that we do. There's other parts of our company that do promotional education, which again, tying back to the marketing and market research group, or the marketing group in the top middle box there. They make decisions about how they're going to promote and build awareness about medications that the company provides. They don't actually do the work. They're supporting agencies and medical communications companies that actually do the work, submit proposals to pharma approves them, and they actually are the arms and legs that get all of that done. Medical device companies, there's many of them out there. It's not as common for pharmacists to work there, but in certain core areas, the regulatory process to get a device approved is different, but there's still a regulatory department in medical device companies. They're just following a different regulatory path. And then there's a lot of pharmacists working at FDA, not in healthcare delivery, and there are a number of pharmacists who do that, but more so in reviewers, reviewing promotional materials, reviewing new drug applications that come through, reviewing clinical research studies from the FDA standpoint to confirm that efficacy and safety of a medication. You can find out a lot more about all of these by digging deeper into the resources section on the IPHO website. And again, we could do a full webinar on any one of these, and I don't want to. I want to cover a lot of ground tonight, and maybe we can go into a deeper dive on one of those categories another time. Just what I want to spend some time on. This is a little bit of the pathway to industry according to Alexander. These are the different steps that you might go through. If you're a student right now, you might be just becoming aware for the first time at the top of this diagram, down to the point below where you would actually occupy one of these jobs at a pharmaceutical company. So again, first step, you're here tonight. You may have heard through some of your local chapters or seen our website. You're at least aware, that there's this parallel universe out there. What's the next thing you want to do? Well, like anything, once you become aware of it, if you're interested, you want to explore it further. See if you can shadow people who do that for a living. Are there courses that you can take at your school or online that can help better inform you about the pharmaceutical industry or what pharmacists do in industry? Network. Anytime one of the speakers comes to your school, whether you have an IPHO chapter or not, from a pharmaceutical company, definitely network with that person, get their business card, try to find out more about what they do, make a great connection with them. Same, one of the common things is, through family members who might know somebody or be related to somebody, working at a pharmaceutical company. And then there's IPHO. I'll go into a number of the resources that we have. I think we're helping out throughout this diagram at a number of levels. but for any of you out there now, I'd highly recommend get involved with IPHO in your local chapter, get involved with us on a national basis, become a member, peruse all of the resources. That's how you explore and find out more about all these different areas that you could work in. Next step along the continuum is experience. And now that it starts to get more difficult as you go along this continuum because it isn't just instant access. How do I find out about an internship? How do I apply to that? How can I get a part-time job? How do I apply for rotations to get really didactic experience and credit for an experiential rotation? How can I get involved in extracurricular activities in my student organizations and otherwise that help to build up my leadership profile, something that companies really, really do look for? If you're a leader, I really encourage you, either IPHO or another organization in your school, I don't care. I was very active in APHA, ASP. I was very active in ROCI. I took on leadership positions there and got exposure. PLS is another one. I got exposure at a national level. There's a lot. It's tremendous personal development if you step up in one of your student organizations and take on something, even if it's leading a committee or volunteering to, lead an outreach or a philanthropic activity. All of that takes planning, execution, teamwork. Those are great things that help prepare you for the kind of role that you would get in industry and look great on your resume. Now we get to one of the questions about, when you graduate, how do I get there then? I'd like to see a future state, we would as IPHO, where all the pharmaceutical companies are kind of banging down the door at your school and signing you up there with a sign-on bonus. I hope a few years down the line we're at that situation. We're not now. We're at a place where there is 8,000 or 9,000 jobs. We'd like it to be a lot more. We're at a place where IPHO is advocating for industry pharmacists at employers. And, I hope there's a lot of you who want to work at a pharmaceutical company if that's what you choose to do upon graduation. Here are the kind of things that you can do to get there. First of all, some extra credentials. Oh, Alexander, what are you telling me? I've already gone to school for 6 or 8 years, whatever it is. Now you want me to get another degree? Well, it doesn't have to be right now, but along the way, extra credentials, whether they're letters behind your name or certificate programs, can really, really help to differentiate you and help open that door to a pharmaceutical company. Fellowships, I put that in the middle. I'm going to go into those in a minute. That's a virtual lock. If you do a fellowship program, you're going to get into the pharmaceutical industry if that's what you want to do. A lot of people who don't, go about their plan B. If you look at the 8,000 to 9,000 pharmacists who are out there working in industry, less than a quarter of them ever did a fellowship program. So I'll tell you right there, 3/4 to 80% of the jobs out there that are occupied by pharmacists, they got there a different way than through a fellowship program. So I encourage you to look into them, but don't get discouraged if that isn't your path. Temporary jobs are one of the best ways upon graduations. Companies, there's not a ton of them, but if somebody doesn't have approval for a full-time employee, an FTE, they look to hire temporary folks, a contractor for 6 months, for example. That's a great way to get an in at a company. So I highly recommend that you look for that when the time arises. Here's one that is, I think, this is a path really not taken as often as it should be, at least proactively. Getting into clinical practice is one of the best ways to end up at a pharmaceutical company. It's just not going to be upon graduation. Once you get 3-4 years of really solid, or even a year in some cases, you can graduate to a year residency and secure an MSL field-based position. You get that clinical practice, you're a lot more valuable to a pharmaceutical company, whereas working a year, 2, 3, even 10 years at community pharmacy is not going to get you closer to getting hired by a pharmaceutical company. And then working at an agency, as I mentioned earlier, working at a company like I do now. We have, 15 pharmacists out of a couple hundred employees. And, some of those like where they are now. Others have gone on to work at pharmaceutical companies. You're doing the kind of work that a company would want to see on a resume. It's just not with, a BMS or a Pfizer logo. But again, excellent way that that's how you choose, to get into a pharmaceutical company. Fellowships, I mentioned what those are, one or 2 year training program. Tons of information about those on our website, on the IPHO website. I've also provided screenshots of 3 of the bigger programs here. You can choose a discipline. Most of them are 2 year training programs. Essentially, you can think of it as a 2 year internship or a rotation. You're getting paid something in the mid-40s usually in terms of the salary. You get benefits. You're often an employee of the academic institution, sometimes of the company that you're training at. Anyway, you're doing a deep dive there and really learning how to be a pharmacist working in regulatory affairs or how to be in medical affairs. And there's approximately 275 of these positions out there, and about half of them turn over each year. So just summarizing the kinds of undergraduate experiences, although there's not one size fits all, there's no perfect formula. But if you want to be a good fellowship candidate or a good candidate for working in industry, here's some of the things that you would want to do. Work your way down that continuum from explore to experience. So get internships, participate in electives courses. I know those aren't available everywhere, but we've got some webinars that we've already got stored on our site. We're going to do more, maybe even this spring, but likely this fall. Participate in those and, learn as much as you can about industry. I mentioned the leadership positions before. Get rotations, even if they're not available in pharma. Some of FDA rotations or these agencies, or even rotations that just provide medical writing, even if they're not an agency or a pharma company. Those kinds of things can give you the skill sets that open the door to these future experience. Work with a faculty member or somebody in IPHO to do some research, or even if it's just a poster, get your name out there, do some publications. These are great experiences and look terrific on your resume and provide you with an opportunity to create a bigger network. If you've done something like this, you get your name out there, you have something to talk about with somebody. Otherwise, what's a conversation starter? That's not easy for all of us. All of us aren't gifted with a great conversation starter. You can talk about these publications that you've done and list 2 or 3 of these things, or talk about the kind of leadership positions that you have. And again, those will be interesting to folks on an interview or as a conversation starter. Very important to develop and maintain that network in relationships at every opportunity possible. I'm just going to grab a little drink of water here on my side and then talk a little bit about the Industry Pharmacists organization. So many of you have been on our website. There's tons of resources there. I'm going to go into some of them today. We launched the organization a couple of years ago now, and how we view ourselves is the home within the pharmacy profession to these 9,000 industry pharmacists. Before, there wasn't anything. Nothing for pharmacists. You have the umbrella organization, APHA, a little bit of DIA or AMCP, those of you who have chapters of those organizations, but they aren't just about pharmacists, and IPHO, we definitely are. We've got a lot of registrants now, a ton of momentum, which we're really enthused about. I know for me and a lot of the industry pharmacists working out there, which is I'm a pharmacist first, no matter what I'm doing every day. It's nearly 30 years now since I graduated. But when I wake up every day, I'm a pharmacist. I'm not dispensing medications or caring for patients every day, but I know the things that I'm doing, are impacting patient care. We are the first and only, as I said, professional organization dedicated just to industry pharmacists. And I think that's important. We have the pharmacist's best interest at mind, and we don't get distracted by things that are non-pharmacist related. One thing is just going back to once a pharmacist, always a pharmacist. I know this is universally true because I lived it myself, and I hear from students now, and for the 10 years I was running the Rutgers program, same from applicants all over the country, that, the only thing that was really encouraged at my school, was these traditional areas of pharmacy practice. Don't fault your administration faculty for that. It's extremely difficult to deliver this complex curriculum that ACPE requires. You almost don't have time to deliver all the classes and hours and rotations that are necessary. But the result of that is that you can kind of get channeled, and then you're rushed down a path if you don't take the time to look around about all the things that you can do. And then all of a sudden, one day a faculty member will say to you, "Oh, why are you looking at industry? They do all these big bad things. That's the dark side." And whereas it couldn't be further from the truth, as I articulated earlier, every day I wake up, I'm a pharmacist. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't feel good about it. And I think you'd find if you talk to all 9,000 of us that that's how we feel. We feel rewarded and happy and enthused about the career path, that we've taken. So that's part of also what's kind of underlying my little tagline there about once a pharmacist, always a pharmacist. And we as an organization, myself, I've been through all these career stages, as have a number of our staff members. So we've designed benefits and services that are helping students, helping fellows, helping practicing industry pharmacists. I'll just read this. I don't like to read, but it's important, the words. The vision, so just to separate for you a vision and a mission. A vision is a future state that we're working towards, that we might say in 5 years about ourselves, that pharmacists are universally recognized within the industry as being the most equipped of any professionals to contribute to this development, promotional, and optimal use of medicine. So there's a lot packed in that, but, again, we're not there today. We're trying to pave that pathway where we are, that all 9,000 pharmacists who are working in industry are living and breathing that and proving it, one conversation and one meeting and one new medicine at a time. But, again, we're advocates. We're an advocacy group, and we can envision that future state because I do believe pharmacists can do anything. And our mission, how we're getting there, no surprise to you listening, as I've described it, that we're exclusively, to the exclusion of other things that could distract us. And we've been contacted by PhDs, physicians, everything else. We're only working with folks like you who are interested in a career in industry as a pharmacist. So, how do we do it and our goals? Again, it's all about the benefits and services for folks like you and others who are a little bit further along the career stage. It's providing great content, advocacy platform, which I've described at least at 35,000-foot level, highlighting career opportunities, and we do that in a number of ways, which I'll highlight in a minute. And then networking. We do live events, and we have some of those coming up. Our leadership team, I think I have at least one of them on the line tonight, Jerry Silverman, who I work very closely with. He's our Vice President of Professional Development and Coaching. Those who are interested in coaching, Jerry does a lot of it for students and fellows. Really proud of our advisory board. This really is a who's who of pharmacists working in industry, people at senior levels, very accomplished pharmacists in industry who have been recognized in their career. And even if you look at the lower middle there, Joe Williams, I always give him a little shout out. He was my mentor many years ago and actually was a Remington Medal winner, which if you don't know, you'll soon find out in pharmacy. That is the highest award and recognition that you can get in the profession. All of these folks back us. We consult with them. They serve as panelists in our live events and so on. So we're really fortunate to have them working with us. Another part of our leadership is our National Fellows Council. Again, we're connected to the 270-plus fellows around the country. The 10 of them listed here are on a National Fellows Council. They drive a platform of benefits, services, and scholarly activities to connect all fellows across the country, regardless of where they are or what discipline they're in or what company or institution they're training with. We have a Chapter President's Council. We might have a couple of you on the line tonight. I saw a couple of names in the registration or in the participants on the lower left, or perhaps those who founded the chapter and now on something else. Anyway, they're terrific leaders. We're so fortunate to have them. Many of them have found the chapters, and I think it was earlier this week or late last week, they do get together on a periodic basis to compare notes and celebrate accomplishments and share best practices. Go into some of our programming and services. Start out with our coaching service. A lot of these things I'm introducing you to tonight. If you want further guidance, we have tons of requests and a lot of clients, if you will, are getting coaching through our coaching service. If you want some one-on-one time, and I have to tell you, it may look like, $30, $40, $30, $40, $50 is a lot of money to a student. This is a highly valuable resource that you have access to through our website. And as a student, you get a great discount on it. This is just a slide showing you we've sought feedback from those who got coaching from us. These are some of the reasons. The number one reason is being able to customize a resume for industry. There's not many people. You might have a career services group before you go to the mid-year and apply for a fellowship, or you go apply for a full-time position. You can find some general advice around your school around getting a resume together, but customizing it for industry, not so much. So we do provide that, again, on a very cost-effective basis. Really proud to have launched 2 new services recently. Fellow Match, where fellowships programs post their offerings, and our student members can view them and apply to a number of them, through Fellow Match. That was something new that we did this year, and we're building on it for the next year. We've also launched Intern Match and encouraged employers to post internships, because I know a lot of you are having an increase in your enthusiasm for industry and trying to get that experience. How do I get it? It hasn't been as successful as we'd like yet. It's just getting off the ground. But look there, in the future for more things to be posted. Meanwhile, we do have on our site, in the back in the resources section, for our members, they can access, I think, a listing of known and available internships. We offer internships through IPhO. These have been, I don't know how many, we've had 30, 40 or more students by now over the last couple of years. Participate with us. Our student members apply, and you can do that through the Intern Match portal on our site. And we work with them on various projects. You can do this from anywhere. You can do it during school. You can do it while you're still attending classes during a semester, or on one of your rotations if you do the work at night. As long as you're willing to commit 10 or 15 hours a week, it literally can be any time. And we have limited capacity to be able to deliver these, but still want to emphasize that that's there and available. And many of our interns have gone on to become leaders. A lot of them are becoming fellows now, and it is a pathway to success. Our INFC, the Fellows Council that I mentioned a few minutes ago, is running an advocacy challenge, a great, not so much a competition as it is just getting our chapters involved and advocating for industry pharmacists. Another way to, if you don't have a local chapter, consider founding one. You can get involved in these kinds of things on a local and national level. Resources, I mentioned resources. Go to this area on the website. It's the tab at the uppermost right. And there's tons of stuff in there, too much to go into tonight. One of them is, I mentioned this earlier, we have delivered other webinars for students where we've had fellows talk about what it's like to work in these different departments. Again, we'll be building this out as time goes on with more in-depth presentations on different aspects of what pharmacists do in industry. For now, these are warehoused there, and we hope to get tonight's webinar up there as well. This is really unique, again, of these 275 fellowship positions. And again, my thanks to Jerry, Melissa Roy, I think, who might even be on the line tonight. I saw her sign up. We've had people help us develop this, and it's really, really been terrific. It's a one-of-a-kind. It's available to our members. It's the only place that you can go and look at what are these 270 positions, who offers them, can I see a brochure, can I visit their website, what's the contact information. So all of these are just tap or click now, and a tremendous amount of work to pull it all together, and now that's available as a service to our paid members. Sign up for our email campaigns if you haven't already. You'll get something, about once a week, maybe every couple of weeks. We try not to fatigue or exhaust people with content. And students especially, if you haven't been with us for a couple of years already, some of you have, if you're just stumbling upon us or just heard about us or whatever for the first time, go into the professional development sections or the blog in our website and explore. There's some really, really valuable advice, really, really valuable content in terms of tracking members' journeys, how they got to where they are today, and it's very interesting for a student, I know, to look at something like that and see how people get to where they are. In a couple of weeks here, a few weeks, we'll have an event at the APHA meeting. I hope any of you who are on the line tonight who are at the meeting, please attend. The URL is there. I think I've got it programmed in the meeting burner that any participant who closes this out or gets a follow-up email, I think you'll have several of the URLs. Tonight's slides, a URL to apply to sign up RSVP for this event. Anyway, we'll have panelists. We'll address topics that are of interest to student pharmacists about working in industry. We're the national office. We're collaborating with our MCPHS University local chapter, which is one of our biggest and most active. They put on a terrific event, the first annual last year, second annual April 15th. We had 250 attendees last year, a wonderful panel and keynote speaker of accomplished pharmacists. This is last year. We haven't updated it yet. The link there that you see, though, the URL, that is, and I need to get this and bit.ly it and shorten it a little bit. But anyway, that's the actual link today that if you're in or around the Boston area, you can RSVP to that one and save a spot for that night. Just getting into some of the summarizing slide now. I'd say on these two slides, I'm just going to talk again about how you can get involved with IPHO and how you can work with us to develop the kind of experience and, resume building activities that will make you an attractive, future applicant, whether it's for a fellowship, internship, or a full-time position. We have scholarly activities going on all the time. If you have an idea Our members can reach out to us and we'll pursue a poster or a survey. People are authoring content for our website all the time, and we'd like to see people do that. Serve on a national committee that IPHO offers. Be one of the presidents of the local chapter that serves on that council. Attend these networking events. Attend and meet fellows, other industry pharmacists, me, other students who have common interests like you. Apply for these IPHO, quote, virtual internships that you can do from anywhere, even if you're not at a pharmaceutical company, and we'll offer you some of the next best things, I can promise you. Join your e-board if you're not the president. Chair a committee. Get involved with your student chapters. And I've mentioned some of the things on a national level that you can do already. So through us, you can be a successful IPHO student pharmacist and prepare yourself for industry by just improving your knowledge generally, so you can, again, I'm really not trying to sell you on industry. I'm just pointing out the benefits and the pathway to get there. If you improve your knowledge, it can't hurt you. It'll help you make an informed choice, whether your pathway lies in clinical pharmacy, community pharmacy, hospital, or industry. The more you can learn about all these different things that you can do with your degree, the better off that you're going to be. We're the place you can do that as a student if you're interested in industry. We'll help identify these industry opportunities for you. You want to do that, whether they're internships, fellowships, or full-time positions on the IPHO job board. Become recognized. I talked about that a little earlier by being a leader. Lead projects, network with industry pharmacists, and show that you're one of those student leaders that's deserving and has earned the consideration of one of these kinds of positions. We do have a forum on our site that students can exchange ideas, and I'll show you the page and how to get there in a moment. There's not much happening there right now, but I say it all the time, you guys can get the conversation started, and it can follow from there. You can also do that, obviously, on our Facebook page, and I'll go into that in a second. Look for scholarship or internship opportunities and pursue those. Advocates and mentors. I don't know when, but we'll get a mentoring program organized through IPHO. Scholarly activities and the other things here I mentioned. All of these are going to open the door to new professional opportunities. Again, I think as a student today, you do need to explore. It's not a sign-up program at graduation, despite all your hard work, just to say, I want to work at the Walgreens or the CVS, therefore I will. There's backward compression out there in our profession in terms of getting a job. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it to encourage you so that you just explore all the different opportunities that are available to you out there. In summary, we're the home in the profession for all these industry pharmacists. I've mentioned all these different ways that we're connecting students, fellows, and pharmacists every day, and this is really just a summary of them. In terms of social media, you could follow us on Twitter. We tweet every day on things that are happening in industry. Our Facebook page, mostly we've got a lot of likes, and we push our content and our ideas and our programs out there. Please comment on them. Get engaged there. We'd love to see some conversation. Our LinkedIn group is for members only. All of you should create a LinkedIn profile, and those who have become national student members are part of our LinkedIn network. And then you can see, other industry pharmacists, students, and fellows who are a part of that. YouTube, we've got a channel there. We have tons of videos on our site, and you could go to our channel as well to see everything that's posted, all in one place. I've got a URL for you. You could go there and start a discussion tonight. I haven't checked it recently because there hasn't been a lot going on there, but you could be the group that starts it. If you do start it, send me an email because I'd like to get in there comment myself and see the conversation that's going on. Okay, so I'm going to get off of this, and I'll probably go about another 15 minutes or so just to give you an idea of our timing tonight. We'll try to finish around